My name's Roman, and I'm 36. I'm not the kind of person who likes to make scenes. I was raised to stay calm, to think twice before reacting, and to never outshine family in public. But sometimes they push you too far. I don't write these kinds of things often, but something happened recently that I need to get off my chest. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there will understand. It started with my younger brother, Julian. He's 33, recently got engaged to a woman named Tara, and the family absolutely worships the ground they walk on. She's fine, I guess. Kind of shallow, loves putting everything on Instagram, and has this thing where she talks about people like they're props in her personal story. But whatever, I stayed out of it. I even smiled through the awkward conversations where she'd call me the quiet one, or say things like, "It's so great that Julian has a brother who's okay being in the background." Real charming stuff. For some context, I own a mid-sized event management firm. Nothing flashy, but we do good work, and we're booked months in advance. Over the years, I've quietly helped with countless family gatherings, cousins' weddings, milestone birthdays, anniversaries. Never charged a cent. Just considered it part of being family. My team even handled the last 3 big events for free, from the catering to the florals. I'd always chalked it up as goodwill. But lately, that goodwill started to feel like a transaction I never agreed to. So when Julian announced his engagement party, this massive pre-wedding experience, as Tara called it, I figured, all right, they'll probably ask for help. And sure enough, 2 days later, I got a message from my mom. Julian and Tara would love it if you handled the engagement dinner. Venue, food, everything. Of course you'll be listed as a sponsor. Sponsor. Not brother. Not guest. Sponsor. I let it slide. Replied, happy to help. Just send me the details you want. That's when the real fun began. Over the next 2 weeks, I got flooded with texts. Not from Julian or Tara, but from Tara's wedding planner. A woman named Mel who acted like she was managing a royal coronation. We'd like a rose wall by the entrance, preferably real petals. Can your team source a private chef for a 4-course Italian fusion menu? Please note that Tara doesn't want any visible staff during dinner. Everyone should blend into the background. Again, I said nothing. I passed the requests to my team, gritted my teeth, and kept the machine running. Then, one morning, I received the seating chart. It was a PDF file titled Confirmed Layout. I opened it, scanned for my name, and found it, right at the bottom, under the Overflow section. Table 12, next to someone named Cousin Aiden's +1. No last name. No seat near the family. Just shoved into a corner like I was an afterthought. That was my first real pause. I called Julian. Hey, I said, trying to keep my tone even. Just looked at the chart. Think there's been a mistake. Yeah, he cut in, sounding distracted. Tara's dad's friends needed space near the main table. Hope that's cool. I waited. Nothing. No apology. No offer to fix it. Sure, I said. Just didn't realize I was overflow. You're not, he said. It's just logistics. Don't make it a big thing, Roman. It's not about you. That phrase stuck in my throat like glass. It's not about you. I didn't reply. Just hung up and sat there for a long time, staring at my phone. A few days later, I got a family group text. It was from my mom, and it said, Julian and Tara asked everyone not to bring gifts, but if you feel the need to contribute, cash toward their honeymoon fund is preferred. That same evening, I was forwarded an email by my assistant, one from the wedding planner. It had been mistakenly CC'd to our company email instead of just to her internal list. In it, she outlined which sponsors were to be acknowledged during the speeches. My name wasn't on it. Not once. Even though I'd fronted the venue booking, paid deposits, and coordinated the entire event. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay there, going over every moment in my head. Every time I'd stepped up. Every time I'd been asked to stay quiet, to not make it about me. Every time I'd watched someone else take the credit while I stood off to the side, nodding like an idiot. The next morning, I got the final straw. It was a message from Tara, sent at 7:42 a.m. Short. Cold. It read, Hi Roman, can you make sure the wine labels don't have your company's name on them? We're trying to keep the vibe personal, not too corporate. Hope that's okay. No thank you. No emoji. No punctuation beyond that single exclamation mark at the end. I stared at the message. My thumb hovered over the reply button. I typed out sure, but then deleted it. That was the exact moment something in me flipped. I went to my office, shut the door, and started making calls. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just spoke clearly, firmly. I contacted the venue and canceled the booking, since the reservation was under my name and my card. I called the caterers and told them to release the date. Same with the florist, lighting tech, DJ, and valet team. All canceled. All refunded. Well, refunded to me, since I'd paid for everything up front. Then I contacted the photographer, a good friend of mine who owed me a favor. I told him not to show up unless I said otherwise. He laughed and said, honestly, I didn't want to do that job anyway. Tara sent me a list of band angles. By 3 p.m., everything was done. Then I logged into the guest portal they'd set up for the party, another thing I'd helped build, and quietly removed my name from the sponsor list. No announcement, no drama, just a quiet, surgical exit. At 4 p.m., I got another text from Julian. You okay? Haven't heard from you. Just need confirmation on final headcount. I didn't reply. At 6:50 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Julian, guests are arriving. Where's the valet? Julian, Roman. Julian, why is the venue locked? Then at 7:12 p.m., what happened to the dinner? I read the message, sat back, and just stared at it for a while. Then I typed. Guess there wasn't room for me after all. I hit send. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. It was my mom. I let it go to voicemail. And that was before the photographer texted me a photo. An empty parking lot, a few guests milling around, someone trying to pry the door open. He captioned it, "Vibe check failed." But the night wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because what none of them knew, yet, was that I hadn't just canceled the vendors. I'd also spoken to someone else. Someone who would show up just a little later, once things had already fallen apart. Someone they really didn't want there. And when he did walk in, everything changed. He showed up at 7:26 p.m., just as the murmurs outside the locked event hall turned into full-blown confusion. His name was Martin Ellery. If you're not in the events business, you probably don't know him, but in my world, he's a heavy hitter. Owns one of the top luxury resort chains on the West Coast. Billionaire, sharp dresser, walks like the ground clears a path for him. And more importantly, he's one of my clients. A loyal one. We've done 8 major events together over the past 4 years. And he happens to have a very long memory when it comes to people wasting his time. I called him earlier that week, partly to vent, partly because Tara's team had dropped his name without permission, trying to bluff the venue into throwing in extra perks. I hadn't realized it until someone on site tipped me off. They claimed the event was backed by the Ellery Group to get around a vendor fee. I was furious. Martin? He was delighted to get a heads up. So when he stepped out of his sleek black town car that night, dressed in a tailored gray suit, all eyes turned to him. Even in the fading light, you could feel the shift in energy. He wasn't supposed to be there. And yet, there he was, calm, composed, scanning the confused crowd standing outside a very much locked venue. Julian approached him first, flustered and still trying to act like the host. I watched the whole thing unfold from a quiet distance, parked across the street with my windows down. Martin raised one eyebrow and asked, "Are you Julian?" Julian smiled, clearly trying to play it cool. Yes. Welcome. Sorry for the mix-up. We're just, sorting out a little issue with the entrance." Martin paused, looked around at the guests milling about, the total absence of staff, the locked doors, the missing valet, the silence where music should have been. Then he looked back at Julian and said, "You used my name to book this place?" Julian blinked. "What? No. I mean, our planner might have mentioned it as an example of." Martin didn't wait for him to finish. "I was told this was a private event for friends of Roman's family. I came here to support him." At that point, my mom came rushing over, her heels clicking against the pavement. "Mr. Ellery, so glad you could make it. There's been a slight misunderstanding. Roman was supposed to. Well, we assumed." "Roman?" Martin interrupted. "Funny. He's the only reason I considered showing up. Didn't expect to find a bait and switch." Tara appeared next, perfectly curled hair, now frizzing in the evening humidity. "We didn't mean any harm, sir. This whole thing has just been a mess. If you want to come in." "There is no in," Martin said flatly. "This isn't my problem. But using my name without permission? That is." And with that, he turned and walked back to his car. But not before glancing at the small cluster of guests who had started recording, whispering, pointing. It was clear this night was unraveling, fast. I should have felt triumphant. Honestly, a part of me did. But another part, the quieter part, just felt numb. Like I was watching something I'd known was coming for years finally snap. The worst part wasn't the chaos or the embarrassment or the texts piling up on my phone from relatives now realizing I was behind the cancellation. It was the hollow realization that this family, the one I'd bent over backwards for time and time again, had never once seen me for who I was. I was a service, a wallet, a background character in their spotlight. Still, I waited. At 7:51, Julian called. I didn't answer. At 8:03, my mom texted, "Roman, we need to talk. This is unacceptable." At 8:11, Tara sent, "You are dead to me. You ruined everything." At 8:15, the group chat exploded. Aunts, uncles, cousins, some defending me, most demanding answers, a few pretending they had no idea I was even involved in planning, as if I hadn't been coordinating every single detail for weeks. And then, finally, at 8:27, Julian sent a message that made me laugh out loud. "Why would you do this to us?" That one hit different. Because that's what it always came down to, didn't it? To them, this wasn't about disrespecting me, using me, sidelining me. To them, it was about me ruining their night. About me making it about me. So I typed back, "I didn't do anything to you. I just stopped doing everything for you." And I left it at that. But the fallout didn't stop there. Not even close. Because what happened next didn't just affect one night. It shook the entire foundation of our family dynamic. And it started with a knock on Julian's door the next morning. The knock came at 9:12 a.m. Julian was still in his pajamas, face puffy from a sleepless night, when he opened the door to find a courier standing there with a manila envelope. "Sign here," the guy said, not even making eye contact. Julian scribbled something and took the envelope inside, already dreading what might be in it. He tore it open with shaking fingers, pulling out a crisp legal document bearing the logo of Ellery Holdings. I know this because Martin sent me a copy, just for fun. It was a formal cease and desist notice. Not a lawsuit, yet, but a very serious warning. Unauthorized use of a private brand, impersonation by proxy, reputational harm. Legalese filled every corner of the page, but the message was simple. Try that again, and you'll be in court faster than you can say free honeymoon suite. Apparently, Tara had used Martin's name and logo on a few mock-ups for the party's PR deck, which she'd sent to potential influencers and sponsors to build buzz. Martin's legal team didn't appreciate that. Julian called me, of course, 5 times. I didn't pick up. Then he tried my assistant, who politely told him I was in meetings all day and no longer managing any family-related events. That same morning, I got a different kind of call. This one from my cousin Arlen, who'd been at the party and had apparently recorded Martin's entire exchange with Julian. I didn't even know he had it until he messaged me a video link on WhatsApp. "Bro," he wrote, "I uploaded this to TikTok last night. It's blowing up." I clicked. Sure enough, there was a video, grainy, vertical phone footage, but it captured everything. Martin stepping out of the car. Julian trying to charm him. Martin's cutting replies. The guests staring like they were watching a celebrity crash and burn in real time. And the caption? "When your rich brother cancels the entire engagement party and the billionaire shows up mad." By noon, the video had over 80,000 views. I didn't ask Arlen to take it down. In fact, I didn't do much of anything that day. I sat on my balcony, drank my coffee, and read through the steady stream of texts flooding my phone. Mom was now in full damage control mode, texting me things like, "Can we please talk?" and "Family doesn't do this to each other." My aunt chimed in with a classic, "This isn't who you are, Roman." And someone even had the gall to send me a Bible verse about forgiveness. But I didn't respond, because for the first time in a long time, I felt calm, like I wasn't waiting for the next request, the next unspoken expectation, the next guilt trip disguised as a favor. That night, my dad called. Now, let me say this, my dad is a quiet man. Old school. He doesn't get involved in family drama. Most of the time, I'm not even sure if he notices it. But he noticed this. When I picked up, there was a long silence. Then he said, "Heard what happened?" I waited. "You all right?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Better than I've been in a while." Another pause. Then, "They're all running around trying to figure out how to reschedule. Your mom's having a fit." I didn't reply. Then he said, "Just wish they'd seen it coming. You've been holding this family up for years. They forgot that." And before I could say anything, he added quietly, I didn't. That meant more than I expected. After we hung up, I thought maybe things would quiet down. Maybe that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. Because the next morning, I woke up to a very different kind of message, this time from someone I hadn't heard from in over a year. It was an email from Tara's uncle, a wealthy businessman, a serious investor. And he had one very simple question. Is it true what I heard, that you paid for everything? I stared at the email, reread it twice. And then, very slowly, I typed out a reply. And that's when things really started to shift. I took a deep breath before hitting send on the email to Tara's uncle. His name was Nathan Lowell, a real estate tycoon who never made small talk and rarely reached out to anyone without a purpose. In the past, we'd crossed paths briefly. He'd attended a gala I organized for one of my higher-end clients, and I remember him giving me a small, approving nod after seeing how flawlessly it all ran. That was it. No words exchanged. Just that nod. Still, he remembered me. So I told him the truth. I wrote, yes, I paid for the venue, the catering, the staff, the decorations, the valet, the entertainment, even the digital RSVP system. I handled everything. Then they asked me not to put my company's name on the wine labels. Said they didn't want it to feel too corporate. So I pulled the plug. If they didn't want me there, they weren't going to get my help either. I clicked send. His reply came less than 15 minutes later. Meet me tomorrow at 9 a.m. Winston's Cafe, downtown. When I arrived, he was already sitting by the window, reading the Wall Street Journal with a coffee in hand. He looked up, motioned for me to sit, and went straight to the point. I don't like freeloaders, he said. I nodded. I heard Tara and Julian were telling people I was sponsoring the event. That true? Yes, I said calmly. He clicked his tongue. Never authorized it. My lawyers are dealing with that. But more importantly, I wanted to meet you. I raised an eyebrow. Why? He folded his paper. Because in a world full of people desperate to fit in, you had the spine to walk away. You knew your worth. Most people in this family don't even know how to spell that word. That caught me off guard. He continued, Tara's been chasing my endorsement for years. Every time she's in trouble, she finds a new angle to get close to my investments. This whole event, this engagement, felt more like a performance than a celebration. I'm not saying Julian's innocent, but he's been completely swept up in her world. And from what I've seen, you're the only one who stood up to it. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, nodding slowly. Then he pulled out a small envelope and slid it across the table. That's not a gift, he said. It's an offer. Inside was a business card with nothing but a number and the name of one of his subsidiaries, an event space located in the heart of the city. If you're ever ready to expand, he said, call that number. I'll back it. That conversation lasted no more than 10 minutes, but it stayed with me for days. I didn't call the number right away. I wanted to be sure I wasn't acting out of pride or revenge. But somewhere deep down, I knew this opportunity came not because I played along, but because I finally stopped. In the days that followed, the family group chat became a war zone. Some blamed Julian. Some blamed me. My mom tried to organize a family meeting at her house to smooth things over, but I declined. I told her I had other plans. I did. I was meeting with my lawyer. You see, there was one thing no one had brought up yet, something everyone seemed to have forgotten. I owned partial rights to a family trust. A small inheritance left by my grandfather meant to support family milestones, weddings, births, home down payments. I had access to it. Julian's wedding fund was scheduled to pull from that trust. So I filed a motion to freeze it. Legally, I had the right. The trust required unanimous sign-off from all 3 stakeholders, and I was one of them. I sent Julian an email explaining that, due to his misuse of funds and misrepresentation of event details, I could no longer support his draw from the trust. He didn't respond. Tara did. She called me at midnight, voice shaking with rage. How dare you touch the trust? That's not yours to mess with. I replied, neither was my name, my money, or my time. But you used those too. Click. 2 days later, my mom showed up at my office unannounced. She looked tired, defeated. Roman, she said, this is tearing the family apart. I looked at her quietly. Wasn't it already? She didn't answer that. Instead, she sighed and sat across from my desk. He's your brother. I nodded. And I've been his crutch. She winced at that. We just wanted to make it special for them. At the cost of making me invisible? I asked. You all treated me like a silent investor. You never asked me to be there, just to fund it. Even at the engagement party, I wasn't a brother. I was a sponsor. There was a long pause before she said, I didn't realize we made you feel that way. You didn't make me feel that way, I said. You told me. When you said don't make this about you. She looked down at her hands. He's been crying, Roman. He's ashamed. Humiliated. So was I said. For years. She looked up then, and for the first time, I saw something break in her, something old and unspoken. Maybe she realized how long I'd been pushed aside. Maybe she finally saw it. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't answer. I wasn't ready yet. The fallout stretched into weeks. Tara's uncle officially cut ties with her. Her influencer sponsorships dried up. Rumors spread fast. The wedding, once planned for a sprawling vineyard in Napa, was moved to a much smaller venue, and then postponed indefinitely. As for me, I called that number on the card. Within 2 months, I opened a second location for my company. Bigger, more visible, and with a long-term lease backed by Nathan Lowell himself. My client list grew. My staff doubled. I even hired 2 interns from a local college, something I'd always wanted to do. And somewhere along the way, my phone stopped ringing with family requests. They'd learned, finally, that I wasn't their silent support system anymore. That I had boundaries. That I had power. The most ironic part? My story ended up inspiring one of my interns to write an article about knowing your worth in toxic family dynamics. It went semi-viral online. I didn't share it, didn't brag, didn't even tell anyone I was the unnamed subject in it. I just kept working, building, healing. Last week, Julian sent me a letter. Handwritten. It said, I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm sorry. I was blind to how much you gave and how little we gave back. I hope someday we can talk again. I haven't responded yet. Maybe I will. Maybe not. But for now, I'm okay just being seen. Not as a wallet. Not as a background name. But as Roman. The one who finally stopped making himself small just to keep the peace. And if that cost me a few broken ties, so be it. Because the peace I found after was finally mine.